Thom Hartmann here with you. I saw a YouTube video with Matt Stoller. Actually, there's an article written about it over at Naked Capitalism that Eve, what's her name, posted that I thought was, pretty brilliant. And in this, Matt Stoller is quoting Supreme Court Justice Brandeis as saying, a monopoly is unified control of some recognized branch of some trade or service. And we have broken up monopolies in the United States, much to the benefit of all of the rest of us, to the benefit of our society. For example, back in the day, the first movie studios also owned movie theaters. And as a result of that, if you wanted to go to an MGM movie, you had to go to an MGM theater. If you wanted to go to, well, actually back then it was Metro or Goldwyn or whatever. And Congress said, this isn't right, this vertical integration like this. If you own a TV or a movie studio, you can't own theaters. And so, boom, all kinds of theater companies started proliferating. Same thing with television. The original television networks owned television stations all over the country. And Congress stepped in and said, no, you can't do that. And which opened up, lots of local broadcasters. So, we have this long history in the United States of saying, wait a minute, this kind of vertical integration where you own the marketplace, basically, is not a good thing. Competition is a good thing. And here we are now with a situation where just in 2017, Amazon merged with Whole Foods. Should Amazon be allowed to merge anymore? I mean, you've got Jeff Bezos, now the richest man on earth. CVS bought its competitor Rite Aid. The chemical giants Dow and DuPont became one giant behemoth. And meanwhile, Google has 88% of the search market. Facebook has 77% of the mobile social networking traffic market. 2/3 of Americans say that they get their news from social media. 2/3 of Americans, and 77% of that is Facebook. And then, ebook sales, 74% of all ebook sales happened on Amazon. Half of all online sales growth last year was Amazon. Now, conventional wisdom in economic circles is that when monopoly or duopoly or oligopoly, and oligopoly is probably the better word for it, but whatever, when this reaches that level where it's very difficult for young new competitors to come into a marketplace, you have a calcified economic system and marketplace, which is not good. It's not good for free enterprise. It's not good for entrepreneurialism. It's not good for your country. So let's get Charles Sauer's thoughts on this. Charles is the president of the Market Institute. MarketInstitute.org is the website. He is a libertarian economist, author of the forthcoming book, Profit Motive, What Drives the Things We Do. Charles, welcome back to the program.
Thanks for having me on, Tom.
And people can tweet you at Charles Sauer, S-A-U-E-R. So, Charles, your thoughts on my rant?
Well, I mean, this is let's have the Thom Hartmann view of how to run a business and put that in government. I mean, the fact is that businesses are...
That's my suggestion.
Well, I mean, you suggested that what Americans need, that we know that, despite Amazon innovations in how they deliver goods and how they provide goods and how they give small businesses across the country the ability to get goods to my home in 2 days, that they probably shouldn't make the same advancements in, let's say, groceries, where they might be able to get, vegetables into the inner cities where they haven't been. The fact is that the markets compete, and the oligopolies only really exist in the literature of the left, because what happens is competitors always see the ability to compete. And if there's a lot of money in one industry, it's looking to take over another industry too. And so capital is always available. I happen to know the father of managed hosting. I refer to him as the granddaddy of GoDaddy. And, his competitor was AT&T. And the fact is he was just so small that they didn't pay attention to him. And all of a sudden he had started a whole new industry in the internet. And, his company now became public, and Verizon Business bought it. But the fact is that
so in other words, he's now part of a
competitors
giant
have always
monopoly
been able
again.
to compete.
So he's now part of a giant monopoly again. I mean, this is the problem. And by the way, this isn't Thom Hartmann's fantasy. This was American government. 1881, we passed the Sherman Antitrust Act to break up Standard Oil. It was a Republican president, in fact, two Republican presidents, William Howard Taft and Teddy Roosevelt, Theodore Roosevelt, who broke up John Rockefeller's empire. Broke it into 27 different companies. When Richard Nixon began breaking up AT&T, everybody said, oh, you're going to destroy shareholder value. When by the time Jimmy Carter finished that situation and resolved it with 6 or 7 new AT&T companies, new Bell companies, plus Bell Labs, which was renamed Lucent Technologies, when that happened, all those shareholders ended up, A, with a whole lot more money, their stock became worth more, and B, it explosively opened the marketplace and all kinds of companies came into it. Now they've just reconsolidated since Reagan stopped enforcing the Sherman Act in '83. But I don't see how you can defend this. And now we've got, by the way, there's an antitrust caucus in Congress that has put forward legislation asking regulators to go back over the last 3 years and see if some of these mergers are actually hurting customers. I'm looking at it from the point of view of consumers and society, Charles. It sounds to me like you're looking at it from the point of view of the fat cats.
You are not looking at it from the point of view of consumers, but you do have good company. You're right. Tucker Carlson recently took your side because he didn't like somebody that Google had fired. And he wanted the populism to step in and really stop and control these large companies. But that's not the way that you're going to stop something you don't want. The way that you help consumers out is by encouraging competition. And if everything that you're saying is right, we should have a competitor that comes up and competes with Google. We should have a competitor that comes up and competes with MySpace. Oh, that's right, they did. It was called Facebook. There will be another competitor. We had Ello pop up a few years ago. We have Google competing with Verizon to bring broadband to people. But I bet
you're talking about industries that are going through. No, Charles, you're talking apples and oranges here. Industries that are going through rapid change, whether it's technological change, cultural change, whatever it may be. Yes, you're going to have old established companies. I mean, look at what's happened to Sears, right? Look at what's happened to General Motors. You're going to have old established companies be replaced by new companies. I'm not disputing that. The question, I guess, that I would ask you as a libertarian economist, which in my mind is an oxymoron, but nonetheless, the question I would ask you is how much vertical integration does it take before you start getting uncomfortable? I mean, Congress stepped in and said that Standard Oil cannot own the gas stations that, at least for a short period of time. Part of breaking up this thing was breaking up the vertical integration, saying if you can drill for oil, you can refine oil, you can retail oil, you can't do all three. Well, now they're doing all three again, but at what level, at what point do you think that it just destroys competition? Or do you have?
Well, let's play back on your field, and let's not be progressive and think about the future. Let's think about Standard Oil in the past. The fact is, when you're talking about Standard Oil, Congress broke them up, and Rockefeller created the modern business and actually brought everybody kind of back together under a larger umbrella and even controlled more of the industry. But Rockefeller...
Yeah, that was during the Harding administration because the Republicans stopped enforcing the Sherman Act in the early 1920s.
No, he was inventive on his business model, but Rockefeller never had a monopoly. And so if you actually watch the prices, what Rockefeller did for oil is amazing. He brought them down, and he brought it, and he was able to get delivery to people. But even on top of that, he had competitors the whole time.
So there is...
He started rising up.
So there is no size that makes you uncomfortable.
There is no size that makes me uncomfortable because entrepreneurs will always compete.
Okay. Charles Sauer. You can tweet him at Charles Sauer or at marketinstitute.org.